Afternoon, everyone. I'll go ahead and convene the Committee of the Whole meeting on this November 1st, 2021. Welcome to all of you. We have two important items on the agenda tonight. The first is the 2021-2022 mid-biennium budget amendment. And then the second one, we've been working on this for a while now, and it's really important getting the establishment of the Equity Commission. And I think with that, I'm going to go ahead and ask Carrie Roller if she could kick us off on the mid-biennium budget amendment.
Right, so tonight we're just here to do a follow-up meeting for the mid-biennium budget update and to finalize the committee report. Again, the purpose behind the mid-biennium budget update is just to update any general fund revenue projections, do some housekeeping items for the expenditure side of things, and then the key thing is to adopt some legislation around adopting an ordinance to set the property tax levy for 2022, adopt the ordinance for the proposed budget adjustments, and adopt a resolution for updating the fee schedule. And so tonight is at the regular council meeting, we will have the second and final public hearing. And so tonight at the Committee of the Whole gives us the opportunity to follow up on any questions you may have, give you an opportunity to deliberate further and to finalize the committee report in regards to the budget. And so this is just a picture of the final property tax levy. So we were waiting for updates from King County. So we received our final adjustments for prior year refunds and new construction. And so the total levy that we're proposing will be a $23.3 million levy for the property tax for next year. And then just a refresh summary from the information we've discussed over the last several weeks is this is just a summary of the general fund adjustments on the revenue side of things. The one thing to call out is most of the adjustments for 2021 does include the grant revenues. So it's just one-time revenues that amounts to about $19.1 million. For the other adjustments, it's about $600,000 for each year. And then just as a summary for the expenditure side of things, this is where we've highlighted some of the larger expenditures for the general fund. And then for the long range plan, this is just for the general fund. This does include any adjustments for that we're proposing in the budget adjustment. And then we do have a few non-general fund adjustments that we're proposing in this mid-biennial budget adjustment. We're adjusting for the House Bill 1590 funds for the housing and supportive services. We're adjusting for REIT, and then adjusting for some grants and also some transfers for some building improvements. And then the last change, or the last thing that we're doing with the mid-biennium budget is to update some fees. And so this would be updating the Maplewood Golf Course fees, adding a small cell site license fee, to update our right-of-way permit fees along the Lake Washington waterfront, and then also some other fees we collect on behalf of other agencies. We're updating the school impact fees and the fire marshal fees. Oops. And so with that, just want to turn it back over to you to see if there's any questions from council.
Okay, I'm going to ask council members to just shout out your questions, if you don't mind, just in case I miss any hands raised. Okay, I don't see any or hear any, which is not a surprise. We've seen this before, so I'm sure council members have been contacting you to ask their questions. So I guess.
So there is a committee report for you to sign to adopt these changes, and then you guys will do all the formal legislation this evening.
Okay. Last chance on this item. Any council members have any questions for right now? Of course, you said there's another public hearing this evening. So, we remain obviously open to public comment as well. But, okay. Well, that was even quicker than I expected. So thank you, Carrie. Great job. as always, good presentation. I think with that, we'll move to the next item on our agenda.
Okay,
Yes, thank you very much. So the establishment of the Equity Commission, and I think we have Preeti with us to kick us off.
Good evening, Council President, Council members. It is my pleasure to share with you our work and to ask for you to bring forward to you an ordinance and about the creation of the Rent and Equity Commission. As you know, this is something that we've been working on for a while, and we have taken into consideration and worked with our community to get their input and also work closely with our city attorney's office. So what we bring to you is a year-long worth of gathering of community input, research, and hopefully what you'll find a holistic approach. I will have Benita Horn present our findings to you, and at any point, please interrupt us with questions and any conversation or any discussion that you would like, because we know how important this topic is. So with that, I will turn it over to Benita, who has a wonderful PowerPoint presentation and hopefully an engaged and fruitful discussion that we will have as we present this very, very critical question and presentation to you.
Thank you, Preeti, for kicking us off, and thank you, Benita, for being ready to go on this. And I just want to pick up on something you said and just encourage council members to just ask questions as we go. I don't want to miss raised hands. This is an important topic, and we have some time. So please feel free to ask questions.
Thank you, Council President, council members, and staff. Good evening. This is exactly what Preeti and I were hoping. And we know that you received a big packet. It has an agenda bill in it, the revised ordinance, chapter 2.7, and a recommended committee report. So the PowerPoint that we're going to go through really captures the highlights of those documents. And as Council President Corman indicated, we really want to make sure that any questions that you have or thoughts that you want to share, that there's plenty of time for those to be brought forward. So from the ordinance, the declaration of policy, first of all, that council finds all forms of prejudice and discrimination to have a detrimental effect on the public welfare and well-being. And to eliminate such prejudice and discrimination, the city may use the rent and equity lens to identify and address inequities. And council further determines that the City of Renton's business plan will include, as part of its vision, mission, and goal, is building an inclusive, informed, and hate-free city with equitable outcomes for all in support of social, economic, and racial justice. And so all of that is the background for the revisions in the ordinance. You know, and most of you know, in past history of the city, there was an advisory commission on diversity. And that was found after some time that it to not truly and in total meet the needs of equity and inclusion for the city. So last year, the city undertook a year-long effort. There were 11 meetings that were hosted by our mayor, and with support from members of the Mayor's Inclusion Task Force, reached out to very diverse and different community groups to seek their input that would help us shape the Rent and Equity Commission. And so as a result of that input and additional research that was done in regional cities and nationally, the city proposes the Rent and Equity Commission be formed, and the following details to reflect the needs of equity and inclusion and to be in alignment with the Renton business plan. The city proposes that the duties and powers of the commission would be at the request of staff to review city policies, practices, or procedures and provide recommendations to the requester. The recommendations will indicate whether the practice, policy, or procedure may create or support inequity, including what community or communities may be impacted and how those impacts may emerge. And the commission will provide specific actions to resolve the identified inequity. Within the first 6 months of formation, the commission shall develop a mission, vision, and bylaws, including election of officers, to manage its operations according to the terms of the charter. And part of that would include an annual report to council on the goals, outcomes, and recommendations for future plans. We recommend a commission of 9 members appointed by the mayor and confirmed by council, and that at the onset, at the startup, that the members be staggered for 1 year, 2 year, 3 years in order to provide for future equitable rotation so that there would not be a total loss of expertise and experience on the commission. And the terms would run from the beginning to the end of each calendar year. Members should reflect the diversity of the city, but not limited to the ethnicity, race, age, gender, faith, gender identity and expression, and profession. And it's possible that not every group in our city demographic makeup may be represented. And as a matter of fact, in about half of the meetings with the community, there was the acknowledgement of this, and that it was of a higher priority that whoever is on the commission have already established relationships with multiple communities in order to have an understanding and to represent their needs and concerns. In terms of criteria for membership, applicants should have a demonstrated commitment to equity. Members from the appointment through the end of their term shall be a resident or business owner in the city of Renton and able to attend meetings. There would be at least one youth member aged 18 to 25 at the time of appointment. And as with our other boards and commissions, if they are no longer a resident or business of owner in Renton, that they would forfeit their membership. We recommend that this commission be composed of community members. And to that end, no city council member would be a member, no city employee or consultant would be a member. And if membership evolves into any of those roles during times of serving their term, then they would forfeit their membership on the commission. In terms of the appointment process, our recommendation is that the mayor shall develop and post a procedure for Renton residents or business owners to apply, and that this would be widely disseminated throughout the community. The procedure would include a public notice for applicants, and there would be a provision for interview protocols for all applicants. Again, with the members of the interview panel would include residents across a wide and diverse sector of the city. We envision that the commission would have the ability to appoint subcommittees to help with the functions of the commission and with the scope of their charter. In terms of their procedure and meetings, the members of the commission will receive training within the first 90 days of appointment and every 2 years thereafter on how to use the Rent and Equity Lens, the Open Public Meetings Act, the Public Records Act, so that their work and operations are in alignment with all of those acts and requirements. A city staff person shall be assigned as part of their regular duties to provide administrative support to the commission, including tasks such as retaining records, providing subject matter experts, preparing recommendations on behalf of the commission for presentation to staff and council. Commission members may participate in a town hall or similar open meetings to the public, and in order to help analyze and provide recommendations on policy, procedures, and practices. Any such meetings will be reviewed for transparency and records retention requirements. The commission may request information from, in addition to staff throughout the city, from such groups as the Mayor's Inclusion Task Force, the Latino Forum, the Vietnamese Chinese Forum, the African American Pastoral Group, Rent and Police Advisory Committee, and others. And members who have more than 3 unexcused absences in a calendar year may be removed by action of the mayor. So that is the big picture. And just to emphasize that by January 31st of each year, a summary of all actions taken by the commission, including their analysis of policies, programs, services, and procedures, and recommendations during the preceding year, will be submitted to council for review and feedback. So with that, we haven't heard any questions so far, but would certainly like to open this up to questions and your thinking on this. And Brittany and I will do our very best to address them.
Well, thank you, Benita. Thank you, Preeti. Great presentation. I really like the structure that you're proposing. I'll kick off the questions with how soon do we think we might be able to get the appointments done and get this off and running?
So we have, if I may answer that, we have the ordinance for first reading tonight and the ordinance for second reading at the next council meeting. So as soon as the council adopts reads the ordinance and adopts the commission, we should be ready to advertise for the panelists. Simultaneously, we will be recruiting panel members. We don't want to have the cart before the horse, but as soon as we have the commission officially created, we'll start getting panel members ready. I know we've already had a few people from the community saying, when is this going to be adopted? We're interested in serving. So we'll get the panel members ready. We'll, give enough time for people to, apply. But I think a short answer to your question is our hope and goal is for this council to be able to appoint the commission unless something gets terribly delayed in terms of, us not having enough members. But we're really hopeful that there's so much excitement in the community that will not happen.
Great. Well, thank you. A very thorough answer. I appreciate it. I'll ask other council members, do you have follow-up questions?
I do, Council President. Do you have, I know that Councilmember O'Halloran also had her hand up as well. Thank you so much, Preeti. This is This is really something that I'm just so excited for, and just eager to see come to fruition. It's really great to see it tonight. Thank you. I wanted to get to sort of the underlying question around the commission's work. Whenever a city takes a measure like this, we run the risk of being seen as performative, unless there's some real action that the committee can take on behalf of the people that it's representing and the people whose voice it's trying to raise. And so I just want to try and understand, if I'm a community member and I feel that I have experienced harm at either, and that is at the hands of either the city or an individual board or commissioner, or whether that's as an individual or the city or something. I mean, we hear this as council members where people have felt that they have been harmed or discriminated against, or that there's been hate action. If I am an individual person in the community and I have had that experience and I bring it to the light of the commission, does the commission have a role in resolving that? What's the scope of the commission in being able to help us get to a place where people can feel comfortable expressing some of these concerns?
I think firstly, some of those issues we find ourselves addressing already and on an ongoing basis. There have been several instances when residents have come to us when they have either felt some discomfort, and the level of that has ranged from, it could be a traffic incident, it could be an incident, a telephone incident. So it has ranged from something at one range to another, and some of it has come directly, some of it has come through a member of the task force, and the important thing is that we try to reach the department and all the way to the mayor or council members, and our goal is to first of all make the person who's at the receiving end to acknowledge, to provide empathy, and then to get to the root of the situation, and if it's a systemic issue, certainly solve it. So it's something that we're already doing, and we would certainly want to empower the members of the commission to do all of the above, to reach out to the staff, to look at it if it's a systemic issue, to address it. But I think in over and above that, and when I say over and above that, if our hope is also for the commission to address policies, to help us take, we've got a tool, the equity lens, but we really need to take that tool into our overall policies, to our plans, to, greater structures that we have within the city and beyond, and to really look at that and bring to the council recommendations. And so definitely we see the commission as being, as a resource for the community, but I think we see the Equity Commission as being, in a sense, the way the Planning Commission is a first stop, before important planning decisions are made. The Equity Commission is really there to look at across the board significant areas of decision making for the city, to make sure that we're looking at it with equity as a guiding factor. And I don't know if that helped answer your question, but we're looking at so many different things, saying, are we doing that in a way that's equitable? And we're going to have our Equity Commission help us get there.
Thank you, Preeti.
Preeti, if I could ask a follow-up, I think one thing I hear you saying is that it's really the intent that this commission be very proactive as well as reactive, right? So hopefully we can get in front of items where, so people don't get hurt. I certainly hope that we can forward policies. I've mentioned before, some of our ordinances are very old. Our city's 120 years old, and some of the ordinances still have old language in them. And with this commission, we could have this commission look at some of those, right? Find out if they should be updated or revised or scrapped, that kind of thing.
Absolutely.
I was just going to say that one of the things that consistently came up in our meetings with the community was a cautionary note from members of the community that commission members not be appointed and given the latitude to pursue their own individual agendas, but that rather their purpose was to represent the residents of Renton and their concerns and needs. And so looking at issues from a larger perspective, as Preeti said, from a more systemic approach.
Great. Good.
The Councilmember O'Halloran, Councilmember Van, I think.
Thank you. Yeah, for some reason I'm not seeing the raised hands, and I apologize, Councilmember O'Halloran. I should have come back to you. I'd forgotten you waved. Please go ahead. Oh, and you're muted, Councilmember O'Halloran.
Of course I am. So my question has to do with the outreach and the publication of this opportunity to the community as a whole. And I just caught off of my interview with the communications consultant this afternoon. And one of the things that repeatedly seems to come up is that we do so much digitally, whether it be Facebook, social media, website, emailing, newsletters, and that's a very large assumption that people are receiving our communications. And so I would like to know what methods do we anticipate using to make sure that every single eligible citizen in the city is aware of these opportunities, not just those who go to our website or get the email with the newsletter, mayor's newsletter. So that's my question.
I can wear my old communications hat and answer that, and I can definitely make a special request to Mary Jane and the communications team. So a couple things. One is that a huge percentage of our residents are renters. And so one of the things we cannot assume is, how strongly they are connected in terms of the internet and therefore to all our digital platforms. And the other thing is, even if they are connected to internet and digital platforms, they're not necessarily using the same ones that we use. So before the pandemic, unfortunately, the pandemic put in several restrictions and barriers, including the fact that City Hall has been closed, and so there were challenges. So before that, one of the things that we used to do, part of our communications teams, was we actually had specific lists of our renters and tenants. And when we had the utility bill insert newsletter, we would send it directly to homes that were not receiving it through the utility bill. So that was a strong outreach to homes, because either you got your utility bill or we sent it to your home directly. And then in addition, for specific audiences through for events like the Renton Multicultural Festival, etc., we had a comprehensive list of the various ethnic newsletters in town, and we did, some paid postings there. And then for the census, for instance, which was a great example of our multitudes of outreach, we did, both social media and WhatsApp and different types of electronic outreach, but they're also targeted, not just one that reaches the, broader audiences. So with all that, that helped us get the not just the English speaking, but many of our, minority groups as well. So what I would definitely do is, have that conversation with the city communications to help us get the word out. And I appreciate this suggestion, Council Member, because it's very important.
Thank you.
And Councilmember Van, I finally found where the hands are raised, and I see you have your hand raised.
There we go. Thank you, Council President. Thank you for the presentation, Ms. Benita Horn and Preeti. Really appreciate it. I have 3 questions, and one Councilmember Halloran just asked. But I guess the first question is, in terms of the slide that says commitment to equity, is that commitment in terms of the future commitment, or in terms of track record of working in equity and solving inequities? Just needed clarification.
Yeah, what came strongly from the community was the latter, that it be a track record. So not just I woke up this morning and decided equity was my thing, but that I am able to demonstrate that I have been committed to equity work. And the community members felt that was very important.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. And then as far as the commission consisting of 9 members, sorry, maybe I'm forgetting, but why the number 9 versus 11? Or was that the prior diversity commission had 9? Or I know we usually add odd numbers is good, but why 9? Just curious.
Well, just thinking about in what is most effective in terms of group size, in really doing analysis work, adequately communicating and so forth, making sure that all voices have the opportunity to be heard. So not so big that was unyieldy, and yet large enough that there would be a wider representation from the community on this commission.
I was going to say that some of this was based on looking at other cities, what their, how many they had. And it kind of ranged from 7 to 11 for the most part. And our mayor's task force, when they were also the community liaison group, we didn't have a number. And even today, that's fairly an open door, and we can have as many members there. But of course, their role is different. So really, that's a recommendation, saying 9 keeps it strong in terms of decision making, collaboration, conversation. It's not too small. At the same time, it's not too large. It's also a good size in terms of being able to fill the membership and have the diversity. So it really was a recommendation. Just keep factoring these parameters in and looking at other cities based on what they've done. So I think no other magic criteria, but just looking at some of these factors.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. And then I have one more. I'm sorry. I math is not my thing. Apparently counting is not my thing. It's been a long day. But my next question, and the last, is when we talk about the requirements as you mentioned regarding the youth ages 18 to 25, and, in terms of the not just limited to ethnicity and, resident and business owners and so forth. So my question is, is immigration status a part of the requirement? Because I know that our undocumented communities have not really had a voice in the city. And so I wanted to understand the criteria for being a commissioner, because we have not addressed that. Because that's talking about equities as well.
Not as far as we have stated or identified, and I think that's a question for council to determine. But as far as what we have in the charter or the ordinance, that should be irrelevant.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Preeti, some great questions by my colleagues, and I guess one thought I have is, you can kind of correct me if I'm mistaken about this, but I would hope that as we look for members of the community that are willing to give their time to this commission, that we can kind of indicate that it's not a question of whether or not they're accepted necessarily. It might be a question of when they're accepted. In as much as you've talked about a rotation through where every year 3 new members would be added. So I presume we would keep a running list of people that have expressed interest and be looking to fit them in as vacancies open up, even if they aren't selected immediately initially. And then the other part of it is these will of course be open public meetings, and I would hope that it's set up in a way that as this commission does its work, that other voices could come into the commission's work. So obviously people will be able to watch the meetings if they're interested, and then make inputs, either written inputs, or maybe there'll be a time at the meetings to make inputs, so that even though keeping it to 9 makes sense in that the people that do agree to do this are signing up for up to 3 years of regular meeting attendance and being there to actually press forward and make the final decisions. But the way these commissions operate best is when there's a lot of input. So maybe there's 10 other people in the room that are paying attention and might offer them suggestions. Right? Do I kind of have that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. Okay. Oh, Ms. Perez.
Thank you.
Councilmember Perez.
I just wanted to clarify that the council passed an ordinance 4 years ago, or it was a proclamation, I don't remember, that we don't ask for documents anywhere in the city. It's our policy. We don't do that. And in fact, I have been in several meetings in the city with people that I happen to know their immigration status, but not because we asked for that, just because I'm familiar with that. But we have had people in the past that their immigration status maybe is different than the rest of us, and they have been participating in some of our meetings. But asking for documentation or immigration status is something that we don't do anywhere in the city of Renton. Correct me, Benita, if I'm wrong, please.
Yeah, absolutely correct. And you will see in the proposed ordinance that the criteria is to be a resident or business owner in Renton.
Good. Councilmember Van.
Oh, I think Councilmember Benedetti had her hand.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm good, thank you.
Still having troubles with my interface on my iPad tonight. Councilmember Benedetti.
Yes, thank you, Council President. Yes, I have a question. This is something that I've brought up in other places, and it's the question of whether or not the city can offer technology resources to people who want to participate in these boards and commissions, but might not have the connectivity or the technology on their own. I mean, we're all in this space here, and I know that it's probably, as this board, as this commission begins its work, it will likely be in a similar sort of place, and especially thinking about a youth member of the committee, or commission, is it possible that the city can offer technology or, Wi-Fi access of some sort that would be able to do that?
I will find out. I will talk to Young and see if there's a way we can offer that. I know Comcast has some programs, but if not, if there's a way from the city that we can offer that, because it just seems to make sense in these times that we offer as many opportunities as possible. So I will talk to Young and see what we can offer.
Good. Good. And Councilmember Van, was I mistaken, or did you have your hand up, or did I see that incorrectly?
Yeah, I did earlier, but yeah, I think it's just on that note, I was just wanting, thank you, Benita, for clarifying, because I think oftentimes we want to, even though we say resident, I think we sometimes say citizen interchangeably, right? So I want to make sure that's clarified, especially when we're talking about equity. And so thank you for the clarification. Because we know that we've passed a proclamation for an inclusive city. That does not mean that everyone feel as if it's an inclusive city. We're striving to be an inclusive city. And so that's a clarification I appreciate. I think as far as the resourcing, we talk about digital divide, because there is an equity and equity component that certainly with the ARPA funds that we have, that we are still working through. As a suggestion, I think Councilmember Benedetti brought up at our earlier committee, but I think equity is a pressing matter, and it's something that we could potentially look into as part of my suggestion in terms of building out the Equity and Empowerment Commission, or the Equity Commission.
Good. Thank you. Councilmember McGurven.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I just want to say that from the presentation and the answers to the questions, it's abundantly clear to me that an incredible amount of thought was put into this. So I do want to commend you both for that and for everyone who put the work into it. I'm so excited to have this before us tonight and to get to vote on that. With that, I do have a couple of questions. The first one was prompted by Council President Corman's question on the terms. I just want to clarify. I assume similar to our other boards and commissions, at the expiration of a term, a member could be reappointed. Is that correct? It's not necessarily that they would for sure cycle off. Okay. I thought that was an easy one. And then the second one, I think is in line probably the question about right sizing, which I totally agree with 9. That seems, and the answer is very satisfactory to me as far as how we ended up with that. The question, I suppose, was more on the membership as far as business owners. Do we do that for our other boards and commissions, or is this something other cities did for Equity Commission? I think it's great. I just was curious on the intent behind that, and if that's in parallel with other commissions we have or similar bodies for other cities. Thank you.
I'm not 100% sure how each of the other commissions identifies their criteria. For this one, we did give it some thought and came up with the options of having the range to include residents, businesses, and youth. Partly because we said we're looking at such a range of subject matter, looking into the future, looking at issues that will impact, a combination of businesses and residents, and to have that expertise or experience in the room will be highly will really be of value. We've seen some of that in the Mayor's Inclusion Task Force, and to have, that kind of dedication we thought would be of great value for the commission. And yes, some of the other commissions in other cities did have that range of membership as well. So it was more looking at some of the models out there, looking at our own experience, not so much looking at the other commissions we have. So those were some of the things that helped us come up with these recommendations.
Thank you. I appreciate the answer.
Good. Yeah, other questions at this time?
Mr. President,
Oh, yes, Councilmember Prince.
thank you so much, Mr. President. Thanks, Preeti and Benita. So my question is on the youth member. What was the thought behind 18 versus like 16? I know the Parks Board has a youth member. So what was the thinking there?
We went back and forth on that one. Our first recommendation was to set a lower bar for the lower end of the age for youth. As you know, we have had a succession of youth members on the Mayor's Inclusion Task Force, as young as 16, and then they move off when they graduate from high school. So it's usually 16 to 18. We received advice from our consul that there might be a concern about liability and for a person younger than 18, and that we should really set the lower end of the bar at 18.
I'm sorry, Benita. I guess I would look and see how the Parks Board's been successful with that and revisit it, because I really do think that you're missing something from the younger members of our community. And maybe it's because I'm older. I don't necessarily see someone who's 25 as a youth member. So I would, just my opinion, but I would, go back and see how the Parks Board's been successful with that.
Thank you. We will.
Just to clarify, so Councilmember Prince, appreciate the input. Can we keep moving forward on the ordinance while that's being looked at?
I have no issue with that.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Keep our momentum. Good. Okay. Any other questions at this time?
I think Councilmember Benedetti has a question.
Thank you, Council President. I just wanted to ask, looking at the immediate business of the commission, other than building out its bylaws, and I think some of the questions that that Councilmember Prince was relating to could be resolved as part of that bylaw process. I wonder, what do you envision as being, say, the top 3 things that specific things that this commission will be tasked with on its formation?
Well, one of the things that we've seen across the country is an equity in planning plan, and that has been that several cities, about 20 cities across the country, have signed on. We did think that we could explore that further and see if the Equity Commission might want to look at that, because it's a very exciting document that embraces a different way of looking at planning, zoning, affordable housing. So that was one thing we thought, we might want to look at and see how that might impact our city, and something that the Equity Commission would look at. The other thing that we are working very hard at, and also have a first step in terms of our approach to purchasing, vendor contracting. We actually have a fair that's taking place on the 17th of this month. And as we're working on that, we're looking at policies and procedures so that we can make that whole process more equitable and easier for especially small businesses to work with the city. So that as it's getting, more flushed out and established, that could be really perfect for us to take to the Equity Commission and, establish that and work with. So these are just two examples that come to my mind. But hopefully they will also come to us and say, here is something we would really like to work on. So it's these really important things that we think would, really take up their priority and their agenda very fast and very easily.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I would like to suggest that, kind of picking up on something Councilmember Benedetti said, that I don't remember what the process is right now, what links we have on the website. If somebody's interested in volunteering just in general to be on a board or commission, I don't remember if they phone the mayor or if they can go on a website, sort of indicate their general interest. But in general, and I've seen it go different ways. Sometimes we have an overabundance of people willing to volunteer their time for all of our boards and commissions, and we have to sort of down select. And then other times we end up with vacancies for periods of time on some of these commissions. So for anybody that's listening tonight, I just would want them to know that if there's a way to communicate with the mayor's office and let them know that if they're interested, that we usually have plenty of volunteer opportunities, and our city wouldn't be the great city it is without all of these volunteers that help us. So maybe we could refresh the links on the website and make sure that maybe they're fine. I haven't looked recently, but that all the opportunities are shown there. Okay, Councilmember Halloran.
Yeah, I think it goes without saying, just extremely, extremely proud to represent a city that is so profoundly committed to this topic and to moving the needle. And I'm just humbled and honored and extremely proud. So, and thank you both, Benita and Preeti, for all your work on this. It just does us really proud.
That's well said, Councilmember O'Halloran. And I want to express the same thing, and just how much I appreciate that you really put your foot on the gas and are getting it done this year. That's really it's nice that I and Councilmember Benedetti get to participate in getting this kicked off. So thank you for that.
I just want to express my appreciation to your support, Council President and Council members, for keeping this on the front burner. This was an action item in your retreat this year, and in discussions in retreats prior to this year. And your support has been instrumental. If I could just add a quick addendum to the contacts, Council President, all of the ways that you mentioned are ways that people find their ways into boards and commissions. Yeah. Sometimes some of you get a note or an email. Sometimes people write to the mayor. Preeti's already received a couple of emails from residents saying they're interested. And, we also have learned, as Preeti mentioned, a lot of effective ways of communicating since the pandemic, since the onset of the pandemic, in addition to social media. Just good old round robin emails, discussions. As a matter of fact, one of the things that Preeti did when she was leading the communications team is set up email lists. And we do use all of our resources, such as current boards, commissions, Mayor's Inclusion Task Force, any groups that already are connected with the city, and ask for their help in also being ambassadors. So if we do this right and well, we really should be inundating residents of the city with this information so that they know how to make the connection if they're interested. And we're going to continue to count on all of you to be ambassadors of that message as well.
Thank you. Thank you. Great. All right. Well, we're getting close to
Councilmember President.
Yeah, please, Councilmember Van. Sure.
I wanted to ask, in terms of timeline, because I know you're saying folks are emailing you, but officially, as you mentioned on the slide, that the mayor is going to set up a notice. So what is the timeline that we're looking at so that our residents who are watching right now are able to understand the official timeline? When we'll get out, and then of course, right, so that it's not just here, I'll send you an email, do you know the timeline, Preeti?
Well, I think officially council will adopt the second reading of the ordinance is November 8th. And I believe that is when the commission will be officially created. And we can work on sending out a notice soon after that or that week. Christy Rowland is on this panel. She might be able to help answer how quickly after that or that week if we can send out the notice.
In an ideal world, Councilmember Van, we're really hoping that the commission would be ready to go at the first of the year. Now that's assuming a very tight time frame, but a possible time frame.
But I'm seeing like then just to kind of rephrase that the notice, the official notice for position, opening commission position would be right after the second reading, about a week or so, give or take.
Right.
And then the deadline then would be probably sometime before Christmas or if not early. Okay. Great.
Right. Yeah, if we give 2 weeks or 3 weeks for people to apply, I mean, it is coming up against the holidays, but we can kind of balance giving people enough time to respond and yet having panel members there. I'll work closely with Christy to balance all that. So.
Yeah, I don't know if this is helpful or not, but it looks to me like the council really has a consensus that we're pressing forward on this. So my view is if the administration wanted to, in anticipation of this commission moving, let people kind of give an early advance notice that we're working on putting it together and that we will be considering or receiving applicants formally on such and such a date. I really feel like you could probably do that and sort of so that if we start following this meeting, start receiving emails, we have some repository for those. That might be a good idea.
Mr. President?
Councilmember Perez.
Oh, thank you. I think that it's that I am assuming that we want to have this as soon as possible, but I also think we have to wait until see how many people apply for this position. Because if we have a lot of applicants that want to be part of this board, it's gonna take longer time because we want each one of the people that are applying to give them the fair treatment, to be able to interview them and get to know them, and I don't know what is the process. So I think it's gonna depend on how many people apply to be part of this board. That's my statement.
Well said. And Councilmember O'Halloran?
Yeah, I wonder if it wouldn't behoove us to have first and second reading tonight.
Yeah, great question. Any council members object to that notion? Yeah, good idea. Because we really are sort of bumping into the holiday. Plus, it'll be kind of confusing, I think, if we, if we don't do it that way. Great, good suggestion. Okay, we won't take action here, but I'll bring that up when we do the agenda review at the beginning of the meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you. Perfect timing. What great presentations tonight. It's 6:44, so I'll go ahead and formally adjourn the committee of the whole, and we will reconvene as a council in exactly 15 minutes. Thank you very much.